Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about the implications of the Pope on the geopolitical atmosphere and how it may change the political landscape of the U.S. While it may seem out of the ordinary to talk about the Pope in a discussion on government, it's worth noting some key points. Though many believe that the separation of church and state is incorporated in the First Amendment and that it is meant to keep faith out of government entirely, it's not actually framed in our Constitution. Regarding religion, the First Amendment only says, quote, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof," end quote. This makes the act of applying religious morals to government not technically unconstitutional, so long as it doesn't violate any other statute. The first mention of this famous saying, separation of church and state, came from Thomas Jefferson's 1802 letter to the Danbury Baptist Association, in which he interpreted this establishment clause of the First Amendment as, quote, "building a wall of separation between church and state," end quote. The Supreme Court later used this interpretation in both the majority and dissenting opinions of the 1947 case Everson v. Board, which forced the Establishment Clause to be applied to state law, as it was formerly applied only on a federal level and states were granting privileges to certain religious denominations. This is the case that made the separation of church and state a famous debate topic today, leading into why we are discussing how the Pope may affect U.S. politics and how it doesn't technically go against the Constitution. The Pope, as the leader of the Catholic Church, holds a unique position in international affairs, also being the head of state for the Vatican, being seen by many as the largest spiritual and moral authority in the world, and holding the position of what is likely one of the most famous roles in the world for its impact. The election of a new Pope is not only a religious event that decides the Catholic Church's new leader, but a global event that can influence diplomatic relations, social movements, and political discourse outside of Catholicism and Christianity's purview. By looking at the historical influence of the Vatican, current political and social trends, and analyzing the effects that the papacy carries, we will discuss and explore how the potential future shifts and the benefits or consequences they may induce, depending on where the new Pope's stance on hot topics may lie. Throughout history, popes have played influential roles in global affairs. Recent examples include Pope Pius XII during World War II, remaining neutral through the war while also aiding victimized Jews, Pope John Paul II through the end of the Cold War, publicly opposing communism and supporting minorities and democratic governing styles, and the more recent Pope Francis's emphasis on social justice, climate change, and the LGBTQ+ community, influencing many progressive global movements. These leaders have used their moral authority to impact diplomatic relations, mediate conflicts, and influence international morals and policy. The papacy and the Vatican often demonstrate many global geopolitical impacts. Some examples being diplomacy and conflict mediation. For instance, Pope John Paul II's role in Eastern Europe's anti-communist movements during the Cold War. Climate change and global policy, is heavily exemplified by Pope Francis and his views on environmental issues. Also, human rights and social movements, also influenced by Pope Francis. And regarding relations with other religious and political entities, the Pope's relationships with global leaders and other religious authorities may shift with the new Pope, impacting the dynamics of diplomatic relations and political and religious cooperation between countries and followers of different faiths. Regarding impact on the United States, with its complex religious and political landscape and majority Christian population, Catholicism being the second largest denomination following Protestantism, is significantly influenced by the papacy's global moral authority. The potential impacts include influence on U.S. political discourse, with points being immigration, poverty, and climate change. This may influence American political debates, especially among Catholic voters and progressive constituencies. Another impact on the United States may be the reinforcement or challenge to U.S. policies. A pope advocating for social justice could challenge U.S. policies perceived as unjust or discriminatory, prompting political leaders to reconsider their stances or risk alienating the church's influential base. Diplomatic relations and domestic policies are, of course, another effect. While the Vatican often maintains diplomatic neutrality, shifts in papal emphasis on different global issues when changing popes can impact U.S. diplomatic strategies, especially in regions where Catholicism is prevalent or even just Christianity itself. Mobilization of civil society and religious groups, which is another impact. U.S. organizations, both supporting and opposing the U.S. government's positions, may mobilize around the Pope's statements, influencing national policy and electoral politics. Factors influencing the new Pope and his impact. The specific effects of a new Pope depend on their theological stance, personal background, diplomatic style, and priorities. This is sort of hard to discuss, having only been in the public eye for such little time, but regarding Pope Leo, the new Pope. But recent popes, especially Pope Francis, have emphasized themes like social justice, climate change, and humility, aligning with progressive global agendas. Conversely, a more conservative pope might focus on doctrinal purity and traditional values. Pope Leo XIV, our new pope, has been said to be more of a centrist, wanting to maintain church policy and tradition, while also sharing and being expected to maintain some of his predecessor, Pope Francis's more progressive views and goals, such as reforms on immigration, the environment, poverty, and marginalized groups. While the precise effects depend on the individual pontiff's leadership style and priorities, it's reasonable to anticipate that the new Pope Leo, will continue shaping global moral discourse, indirectly affecting U.S. political debates. History demonstrates that the papacy's influence extends beyond ecclesiastical boundaries into international diplomacy and domestic policy. In conclusion, the appointment of a new pope holds the potential to influence global geopolitics through diplomatic mediation, environmental advocacy, and social justice initiatives. In the context of the United States, this influence manifests through shifts in political discourse, policy debates, and civil societal mobilization. While the specific impacts depend on the Pope's priorities, history suggests that the papacy will remain a significant moral compass on the world stage, shaping international and U.S. political landscapes. Thank you everyone for watching my video. Be sure to like, share, and follow for more content on history, government, and religion in the future. Have a good night.